when, like one of those infinitely pathetic dogs on one of those unbelievably cruel electrified floors, he learned helplessness. It doesn't matter whether or not you want to have a bar mitzvah, his dad had said, but try to think of that as inspiring. Why was he so obsessed with animal cruelty anyway? Why was he drawn to videos that he knew would only reinforce his convictions about humankind? Piglets smashed against the floor as if to put out a fire, cows branded on their faces just because, orphaned monkey babies with eyes more human than those of any psych grad student, learning nothing significant at the cost of the only thing whose significance couldn't be discounted, extreme pain. He'd spent enormous amounts of time seeking descriptions and images of violence, animal cruelty, but also animal fights imposed upon them and in nature, animals attacking people, bullfighters getting what they deserved, skateboarders getting what they deserved, athletes' knees bending the wrong ways, simulated, he assumed, rapes, suicides, hangings, cuttings, rifles in the mouth, jumping from bridges, stepping in front of trains, jihadist beheadings, helicopter beheadings, street fights, subway fights, bum fights, and more. Prolapsed anuses and sexual injuries more generally, meat grinder accidents, garbage disposal accidents, car antenna lobotomies, battlefield dead, civilian victims of chemical warfare, stillbirths, botched surgeries, people who ask too much of pit bulls of whom too much was already asked, burn victims, instructional videos about cutting away the questionable parts of roadkill as if they were unquestionable parts, instructional videos about lancing hemorrhoids, instructional videos about painless suicide, a definitional impossibility, and so on and so on and so on and so on. The images were sharp objects he used against himself, allowing him to feel the boundary between himself and the world. There was so much on the inside that he needed to get on the outside, but that required wounds. On the silent drive home with his dad, he explored the chapel he'd built around the bima. The three-toed claw feet of the weightless 2-ton pews, the Gordian knotted fringes at the ends of the faded rag runner down the aisle, the prayer books, each word of which was continually refreshed with its synonym. The Lord is one, the aristocrat is alone, the gentle person is abandoned. Left to go on long enough, the prayers would, if only for an instant, return to their origins. But even if the average life expectancy continued to increase 1 year with each passing year, it would take forever for people to live forever, so no one would ever live to see it. The pressure of Sam's unreleased insides often took the shape of unshared useless brilliance, and while his father's brothers and grandparents ate lunch downstairs while they were obviously talking about what he'd done and what to do with him, while he was supposed to be memorizing the words and melody of a Haftorah whose meaning no one ever bothered with, he created morphing stained glass windows, crudish animations to replace the tableaus. The window to Samantha's right depicted baby Moses being swept down the Nile between mothers. It was a loop, but stitched together to feel like an endless journey. Sam thought it would be cool if the chapel's largest window was an ongoing depiction of the Jewish present. So instead of learning the idiotic and utterly useless Ashrei, he wrote a script that pulled keywords from a Jewish-related Google News feed, ran them through a jerry-rigged video search, which combed out redundancies, red herrings, and anti-Semitic propaganda, ran those results through a jerry-rigged video filter, and projected them onto the window. It was better in his head than it was in reality, but everything was. Around the chapel, he built the synagogue, the labyrinth of literally infinite forking hallways, the orangiata dispensing water fountains and urinals made of the bones of ivory poachers, the stashes of genuinely loving, non-misogynistic, anal-oriented porno in the storage closet in the men's club social hall, the ironic handicap spot in the stroller parking lot, the memorial wall with tiny, never-working bulbs, besides the names of those he wished prolonged and painful death upon, faux best friends, the people who made acne pads sting so motherfucking much, etc. A highly paid and health-insured black and security guard who genuinely loves his job and gives genuinely sincere, exploding fist bumps to adopted Chinese kids with black dolls and Caribbean nannies, with imitation handbags with organic seaweed snacks. Various make-out grottos where tender-hearted and genuinely funny girls who dress like American Apparel advertisements and write Percy Jackson fan fiction allow klutzes to suck their perfect tits. Chalkboards that deliver dangerously high-voltage electrical shocks when touched by the fingernails of smart-ass dumbfuck regretfully blowjob bullies. Small plaques on every surface letting everyone know that it was because of Samantha's beneficence, her fundamental goodness, her love of mercy and fairness, and the benefit of the doubt, her decency, her inherent value, her non-toxic unshittiness, that this stairway exists, that this computer lab exists, that this ark exists. His dad had given him an article about a boy in a concentration camp who observed his bar mitzvah by digging an imaginary synagogue from the earth and filling it with upright twigs to serve as a silent congregation. Of course, his dad never would have guessed that Sam actually read it, and they never spoke about it. And does it count as ever thinking of something again if you're thinking of it constantly? He built the synagogue for the occasion. The entire edifice of organized religion, conceived of, constructed, and cared for simply for a brief ritual. Despite the incomprehensible vastness of other life, there was no synagogue. And despite his profound reluctance ever to step foot in an actual synagogue, he wanted a synagogue. He didn't long for one, but he needed one. You can't destroy what doesn't exist. And then the next thing I will read is an older story that